do you believe that there are some issues and some debates that aren't debatable or aren't subject to skepticism? And I'll get to in a minute why I'm asking that. But do you think that there's anything that is off limits, or do you think there should be anything off limits?
It depends on the group of people. To give kind of an analogy is, I'm the kind of person who, when we talk about comedy, Joan Rivers had a phrase where she would say, there's no bad jokes, there's only bad comedians. You have to know your audience. You have to know when it's appropriate to make a certain type of joke. And one of the things that, as a good comedian, that you do is you never punch down. There are topics of conversation, particularly when it comes to religion and politics, that we specifically and deliberately avoid in our roundtable discussions, because it's hard to maintain it's hard to look at these as just a conversation and not feel attacked. So in that way, there are things that are out of bounds for most of our conversations, but, we have had conversations that got very heavily into politics. We had we've discussed, I'm trying to think of his, Camus. He's an old French philosopher who was active during World War II. And that conversation got very political. But because of the way we were framing it and doing it, we were able to avoid anyone getting upset or getting angry or feeling attacked. And I really have to credit a lot of the people in our group who just are able to do that in a very wonderfully gentle way. And not all groups have those sort of people. So, it's you have them. You gotta make sure they're happy, because you want them to keep coming back. You need that.
Well, there's a couple reasons why I brought that up. Because I've been wanting to talk to somebody who claims to be a skeptic about this. Because I get frustrated sometimes when some people tend to make any topic a source of an academic discussion. Even if you're talking about marginalized people, especially if you're talking about marginalized people or their socioeconomic status, or things like that. And for example, there's been this big bubbling brouhaha in the sports world about transgendered women playing sports.
Okay.
All right. And I've talked to my fiance about this. We've had personal discussions about it.
Right.
All right. And we've come to the tentative conclusion that there isn't enough evidence either way. Whether or not it's a detriment or obviously it's a positive, because these women are going to be able to participate in sports.
Yes.
All right. But the evidence for being detrimental, it's still out. We don't know.
Yeah.
Because biology is so complex.
Yeah. This is actually, when you first asked the question, I was debating whether to bring it up myself or not. Transgender issues and issues of gender in general, these are issues that the skeptic community has done a horrible job, and almost unforgivably horrible job at addressing. We have a lot of these new wave atheists in our skeptic movements, because there's a lot of overlap in the atheist community and the skeptical community that are very, they're TERFs. They're trans exclusionary radical feminists, and they're not open-minded. They're I already forgot the word we used. They're instead of denial,
cynic.
They're very cynical when it comes to trans issues. We have a lot of people who are not arguing in good faith on this issue. They're being bigots, and they're being misogynists, and they're making horribly bad, scientifically invalid arguments about these things. And it doesn't help you because like you said, these are marginalized groups, and my default position, and I think everybody's default position, should be to treat people with compassion. It's these issues that get brought up, like that happen, like the track stars that I mentioned earlier, the story on the track stars. I don't know that these stories are brought up in good faith. Right. When they become national news rather than just a regional story. These are folks with an agenda who are trying to drive a wedge into these communities that would otherwise agree on 99% of the other issues.